The day before the end of the world, I was shopping in a large supermarket with my N+1 compensation. The reason was simple: my parents finally renovated their villa in their hometown. It's just after the Double 12 holiday, and there are still 2 or 3 months before the Chinese New Year, and I was unfortunately fired by the company I worked for 5 years. Unexpectedly, this misfortune gave me a solid fortress and abundant supplies in the end of the world. If it weren't for the bully son of my neighbor, our whole family could have survived. On the day I was fired, the boss said to me, "Chen Yi, the company's compensation is already very sincere. I hope you don't get too stuck in a rut. Let's part ways in peace, leave a little dignity for each other, and it won't be too embarrassing to meet in this industry in the future." The words are pretty nice, isn't it just that the boss's daughter and my boss and boyfriend fell in love with each other, and they are eager for me to step down. It's so funny, who would go against money for a scumbag? So I took the money and left. However, these 2 or 3 months are neither long nor short. It is just right for me to go back to my hometown to accompany my parents and have a rest. Since I am going back to my hometown, I must not treat myself badly. Although I have already stocked up all kinds of daily necessities that I am used to during the Double 12 shopping festival, I think about the 2-story basement used as a cellar in my hometown, the muddy road that will make it inconvenient to travel, the 1-hour drive to get a courier, and my own homegirl attributes. I think I can buy more. After finishing a wave of purchases, I drove my Sherry back to my hometown. Although the villa has been built for 2 years, this is the first time I have come back to see it. You don't know until you see it. I was shocked when I saw it. Wow, this yard of more than 500 square meters, a courtyard wall more than 2 meters high, an explosion-proof door, and an electric fence, is this really not a prison? Oh, I'm back. Mom, what's wrong with this courtyard wall and this door? I picked up my jaw and looked around. 5 or 6 vegetable ponds were neatly built in the front yard, and all kinds of vegetables grew lushly on them. There was also a small fish pond in the southeast corner, with several tilapias. Oh, it's all because of that bastard from the Zhang family next door. The Zhang couple next door had a son named Zhang Yaozu when they were over 50 years old. They spoiled him lawless and had been to juvenile detention several times at a young age. I was bullied by him when I was young. Especially after entering junior high school, my body developed. Every time I went home, he would follow me with a whistle, and every time my father would come to the intersection to pick me up after school. Later, he was sentenced to 5 years for intentional injury, and I was freed. Thinking of that man's malicious eyes, I couldn't help but shudder. That bastard climbed over the wall and broke into your dad's safe. Fortunately, the house had just been renovated at that time, and we hadn't had time to buy furniture. The safe was just a cheap one given by the renovation company, and there was nothing inside. That night, your dad and I were at your Uncle G's house in the city. When we came back the next day, we saw a mess on the floor. That bastard didn't get the money and actually smashed all the glass in our house. Your dad and I called the police, but the bastard had already run away. The police in the area all knew him, and they couldn't do anything about him. He was sentenced to 3 to 5 years before, but he still couldn't change his ways after he came out. The 2 old guys in the Zhang family are like dead pigs that are not afraid of boiling water. They actually ran to our door and cursed, saying that we called the police and forced his son away. Your dad was so angry that he didn't sleep well for several days. Mom said as she led me into the house. Later, I discussed with your father that if you can't afford to offend me, you can always avoid me. So we raised the wall, installed an electric fence, and replaced the gate with the strongest one. The boss said that unless there is a lot of explosives, this door will definitely not break. And the windows have been replaced with bulletproof glass. I heard that the Zhang family kid fled to Southeast Asia. That foreign country is a mess. I heard that there are still wars and guns. Who knows if that bastard will secretly bring back a gun. Our family has had a good life in the past few years, and many people are jealous. My eyes were red when I heard this. In the past few years, I was busy working outside and paid too little attention to my parents. I interrupted my mother's chatter. Mom, why didn't you tell me such a serious thing? If I had known that bastard was released, I would have taken you to the city. This bastard will never do good wherever he stays. Where's my dad? Is he feeling better? Why don't I see him at home? He's been well for a long time. Your dad and I are farmers. We're in good health. He'll be fine in a few days. Your dad went out early in the morning and said he was going to pick up an old friend to play. It's your Uncle Lee. He's pitiful. He has been chased for so many years for his wife who passed away early, and he doesn't even have a child. Your dad is the only friend he can talk to. Besides, the express delivery we bought has arrived, so I asked him to bring it back. After changing clothes upstairs, I followed my mother to tidy up the basement. She said that we bought too many things some time ago and didn't organize them properly. I looked at the neatly arranged shelves in the basement and my jaw dropped again. The shelves were filled with large packages of grain, oil, rice, noodles and various daily necessities, toilet paper, toothpaste, toothbrushes, shampoo and shower gel, and even my usual sanitary napkins took up a whole shelf. There were several large freezers in the corners and a pile of unopened express boxes on the ground. Mom, why did you buy so much? Isn't this an online promotion 2 months ago? I saw that it's much cheaper than buying it in the street shops. You also know that we will have a housewarming party after the new year. These things will increase in price before and after the new year. It's better to buy them now while there are discounts and stock them up. Look, these things have a long shelf life and can be stored for a long time. My mother's eyes lit up when she calculated the accounts. In short, it was a big bargain. Seeing that she was happy, I didn't discuss with her that the wool came from the sheep. Instead, I resigned myself to following her to sort out the pile of express deliveries on the ground. My mother is happy, and my mother is happy, and the whole family is happy. I was so tired that I couldn't even straighten my back after I had been busy sorting until noon. Although it was fun to open the parcels, it was painful to open them for 3 or 4 hours straight. Fortunately, the basement was also equipped with air conditioners and a fresh air system, so I didn't feel uncomfortable staying there. After lunch, my father hadn't come back yet, so my mother simply took me to the second floor to clean up. When I went down, I saw that the air conditioner outdoor units at home were actually installed on the second floor. My mother took the initiative to explain to me that they had installed them outside before, but the Jung family next door cut the wires several times, saying that the air conditioner outdoor units were too loud and disturbed them, so they didn't allow us to install them outside. Her words hinted that my parents should pay billions of mental damages, otherwise these air conditioner outdoor units would not be installed. These are all minor matters. They are all scoundrels. We don't have to argue with them. They are barefoot and are not afraid of those wearing shoes. What if they quarrel and blackmail us? Do you remember the old man Lee from Dongsan? Grandpa Lee is a vineyard grower in Dongsan. 2 years ago, Zhang Yaozhu was just released from prison. When he was strolling in the village, he saw Grandpa Lee just receiving the payment for grapes. The old man didn't know how to use WeChat or Alipay, so he took cash. The golden and red Mao Zedong stimulated Zhang Yaozhu. That night, he sneaked into the Lee family and stole tens of thousands of yuan in payment. The next day, Grandpa Lee and his family brought the police to find Zhang Yaozhu, but Zhang Yaozhu ran away overnight. The Zhang couple refused to reveal their son's whereabouts and insisted that it was not Zhang Yaozhu who stole it. And the police really had no evidence. Zhang Yaozhu had been in prison for several years and had learned to be smart. He didn't leave a single footprint or fingerprint at the scene. Both sides were very emotional. In the chaos, no one knew who started the fight first. The old man of the Zhang family was hit in the chest by several punches and was hospitalized. The injury was minor, but the Zhang family relied on the Lee family. The Lee family had a young son who was preparing to take the civil service exam. If a direct relative of the family had a criminal record, his future would be ruined. The Zhang family used this as a threat to ask for money and things, and the Lee family suffered losses for several years. Until the beginning of last year, Grandpa Lee's health was really bad, and he sold the vineyard and traveled around. The Zhang family wanted to make a fuss, but Grandpa Lee's youngest son didn't want his family to be threatened by such scum again, so he resigned from his public office and went into business, and the Zhang family calmed down. But these few things reminded me and your father. Now, I think it's a good thing that my mom was not at home at that time. Thinking of this, I quickly asked my dad to connect the line of the photovoltaic panel to the main switch of the house. In the past, the voltage in the countryside was low. The transformer bought by the family was not used yet, and the village increased the voltage. When the water and electricity were used at home, my mother asked me to install it. Fortunately, my mother didn't want to throw things away. Now we have all the basic survival supplies, and the rest is spiritual entertainment. I took out my tablet and all my mobile phones and started downloading all kinds of TV series, movies, and documentaries. I also found a few USB flash drives to download on the computer, not only TV series, but also various e-books. Taking advantage of this gap, I moved all the express deliveries in my dad's car to the basement. Everything was done, and it was already 8 o'clock in the evening. At this moment, I stood in the yard and listened to all kinds of screams and shouts coming from the village, and my heart was calm. In our family, my mother is in poor health and my father is old. They can only rely on me. And I am not a savior who came from heaven, I am just an ordinary person. I just want to try to survive with my family. I turned back to the house, closed the door, and cut off all the sounds from the outside world. After finishing dinner absent-mindedly, our family stayed in the living room on the second floor and stared at the surveillance video. Our house is a little off the beaten track, a little far from the main road, and no zombies have appeared yet. The old man of the Zhang family, who was closest to us, heard the sound and went out to take a look. He was so scared that his face turned pale, and he hurried home and closed the door. We don't have any relatives to contact. My parents are only children. I am the only child in this life. My grandparents have passed away long ago. The remaining relatives had already torn their faces when my father asked to borrow money to build a villa. In order to be on the safe side, I still gave my parents a vaccination in advance. People's hearts are unpredictable. We can save one but not a group. And people's hearts are always on their side. In this end times, it is still the most important to protect ourselves. We must never do things that invite wolves into the house. My parents both said they understood. We didn't think of building a villa at first. It was too ostentatious. My parents didn't like it. It was just that the old tile house that had been vacant for many years was requisitioned for road construction in the village. My parents' money was all in the bank. I had just quit my job and hadn't established a foothold in the new company. My family couldn't come up with so much money all at once. I asked all the relatives, but no one was willing to lend money. The most heartbreaking thing was my father's cousin. Both families had a hard time back then. My father thought about my cousin's hard life in her husband's family, and he saved money to buy her a good coat for the new year. Her son's grades were not good at school, and my father ran around to find connections for her to go to a good school. Even when he was going to work, it was my father who invited people to dinner and forced him to work in a big company. It can be said that for so many years, my father ran more diligently than anyone else when my cousin called. I also expressed dissatisfaction, but my father said that we were all relatives, and what he did today, the good for her family, would be rewarded to me in the future. In this way, when I get married and my parents are gone, I still have an aunt and a brother to support me. I didn't expect that even when my parents showed her their passbook, my cousin still said that she had no money to lend, and she turned around and signed up for a 7-country tour of Europe for her family of 5. She also posted photos of shopping in luxury stores on WeChat Moments. If my cousin's boss hadn't accidentally met my father and asked if my cousin had won the lottery, we would still be in the dark. You can block someone in WeChat Moments, but you can't block social circles. My parents decided to build a beautiful villa, in a rage to let those snobbish relatives see it. Now that the disaster is imminent, it's no wonder that we only care about ourselves. I went back to my room and moved out my gaming chair, and told my parents that from tonight, I would work the night shift, my father would work the day shift, and my mother would take care of our daily life. After the discussion, I sent them to sleep. Even if they couldn't sleep, they had to close their eyes and rest. The bell of the end of the world has already sounded. The future will be a protracted war. How can we fight without keeping our spirits up? At night, I watched the surveillance and scrolled through the videos. People on the internet were either seeking help to get supplies or sensationalizing to gain traffic. Suddenly, a post caught my attention. The author was called "The News Dog Who Doesn't Do His Job." The post analyzed that according to the existing data, this zombie outbreak is global. European and American countries have already had an outbreak, and China has also reduced many international flights due to the epidemic, which has supported it to this day. The domestic zombie outbreak was caused by a dog that ran away before the zombie virus-infected person was eliminated abroad. The dog was picked up by a Chinese student and shipped back to China. Because the first person to report the zombie attack was the parents of this student, the virus would not appear for no reason, and the parents of the student only had medical records of being bitten by a suddenly crazy dog and getting rabies vaccine. The author also posted the vaccination records of the 2 elderly people and the surveillance video of the hospital on the day of vaccination. He also said that he had noticed the appearance of zombies abroad a long time ago. Because such videos on foreign websites were previously regarded as spoof videos, no one would believe them, and no one would deal with them. He said that he had been very distressed. He knew that the sky was about to fall, but others not only did not believe him, but also called him a lunatic. So he returned to his hometown alone and stockpiled a lot of supplies in the hope of safely surviving the end of the world. This person is not simple. This is my first feeling. With a unique vision, meticulous mind, and strong technology, he was able to hack into the hospital to obtain vaccination records and surveillance. If you think about it carefully, there should be quite a few such people. After all, there have been overseas bloggers who used the COVID-19 epidemic as an excuse to remind people to pay attention to stockpiling food and reduce going out in the near future. It's just that they didn't say it as bluntly as this news dog comrade. However, this also reminded me to be wary of animals spreading the zombie virus. Wasn't the source of the zombie virus in the movie Train to Busan a dead deer? I looked at the account of Newsdog. The IP location was shown in a first-tier coastal city. This was obviously modified to cover up the truth. Because the city had already fallen in the early morning, and this post was published at 4 o'clock this morning. Until 6 o'clock in the morning, the comments were all mocking and scolding the author for doing whatever it took to gain traffic. The comments after 6 o'clock were all worshipping the gods and asking for supplies. Among them, the ID with the most comments was called Survivor Tribe, and the picture comment was a warehouse full of supplies. The address was also posted below, at a certain university in the city, calling on survivors to gather together to resist zombies and rebuild their homes as soon as possible. I shook my head. It was too childish, as if a few children were playing house. Today is the first day of the zombie outbreak, and there are still many people who survived. Let's not count how people will break through the zombies to reach the destination, nor how many people can survive for how many days these supplies can support. Who can lead everyone after people gather together? How to re-establish order? It is impossible for a few students who only know how to talk on paper and who can guarantee that everyone is as enthusiastic, selfless, and dedicated as this group of students to save the country and the people. After all, in places where the sun does not shine, such as laws and regulations, fists are order.it. Is a mistake for a group of students who do not know the dangers of society to have so many supplies and let people know about it. Alas, I can only pray for them silently in my heart. Nothing happened overnight, until the early morning when I heard my mother's voice, saying that my father had a fever. Witnessing the zombies attacking people with my own eyes and the tense mental state, even if my father is in good health, he can't bear it, and we don't have medicine in stock at home. My mother and I searched the basement and only found a lot of masks, disinfectant, diarrhea medicine, and a few boxes of Hwaseong water. Because of the epidemic, our family hasn't bought antipyretics for a long time, not even cold medicine. My mother could only sit by the bed and wipe my father's body over and over again to cool him down. Fortunately, by dusk, my father's temperature had dropped. I was tired and hungry, but I had no appetite at all. I cooked some porridge for my father, and my mother and I ate some frozen dumplings. At night, my mother suggested that she would come to see him in the first half of the night, and I would come in the second half of the night. In the past few years, our family's land has been rented out, leaving only an orchard in the back mountain. Your father and I are going to travel around, and you work in the city, so there is no one at home. This air conditioner hanging outside the wall is a hidden danger. Who knows if Zhang Yaozhou will dismantle it and sell it when he has no money. Besides, what if he falls down while dismantling it? There is space in the basement anyway. I also made a separate exhaust and soundproof treatment. It is better than the soundproofing upstairs and won't disturb us. Spend a little money and avoid a big trouble. There is no air conditioning on the second floor of the basement, only a fresh air system, so there is no food or anything, only some of my father's tools and farm tools. There are few things and they are not organized. My mother went to cook when she saw that it was almost time, and I went back upstairs to take a comfortable bath. When I was done packing and took out my phone to watch some videos, I saw a big title on a short video platform: Zombie Rising, the end of the world is coming. An unknown virus, similar to zombies, is spreading in our city. Citizens are requested to take precautions and not go out unless necessary. This morning, a suspected rabies patient bit several people in the downtown area. The police on duty and several people worked together to subdue him. The injured have been sent to the hospital. Various bloody and terrifying videos of zombies injuring people came one after another. I was still thinking in my heart, this is December, not the 1st of April. When I opened WeChat again, the community owner group was already in an uproar. I heard that a rabies patient bit someone on the pedestrian street. A policeman and 4 or 5 big men almost couldn't catch him. Look, isn't that the owner of Building 6 at the gate of the community? Why didn't he go to the hospital to bandage his arm? He lost so much blood. Zombies. That's a zombie. The owner of Building 6 has mutated. He just bit the security guard at the gate. Everyone, go home quickly and don't go out. One message after another, one video after another, made me believe that the end of the world is really coming. I was thinking about calling my dad to call him back when I heard the engine of the old Ian Bay. I looked back and saw that my dad's car was not turned off, and he hurriedly went to close the gate of the yard. My dad turned back and called, "Yee, come and help Dad close the door. Outside. It's dangerous outside, there are zombies biting people." My dad yelled and scared my mother. I quickly told my dad to calm down, lock the gate completely, and then power up the electric grid on the wall, and then lock all the windows and draw the curtains when I got home. My mom had a lot of work pressure when she was working in the early years, and she suffered from mild neurasthenia. She couldn't have any light when she slept, so all the curtains bought at home were blackout curtains. After doing all this, I went back to the first floor, and my mom was whispering to comfort my dad. I showed my mom the short videos on my phone, and fortunately, I reacted quickly and saved all the videos. It should have been taken down by now. After all, it was really too bloody, and even if it was not manually reviewed, the robot could recognize it. Dad drank a glass of water and spoke slowly. I went to the express station to load the express in the morning. After lunch, I went to the highway exit to pick up Lao Li. He just retired internally and said he would come to fish and play for a few days. As a result, he didn't come for a long time after the agreed time. I thought it was unsafe to make a phone call on the highway, so I waited patiently. I saw his car just now and found that he seemed to be injured. When I handed in the card at the exit of the highway, I saw blood on his hand. I was sitting in the car at the time. I saw his car and started my own car, thinking that we would come back together when he came. Who knew that the tall girl saw blood on his hand and called her colleagues to check it out? I heard them calling the emergency number. Lao Li was in the car with his eyes wide open and weak. He seemed to be unconscious. The blood had stained half of his clothes. I was about to get off the car to see, when Lao Li suddenly jumped out of the car and bit the girl's neck, taking off a big piece of flesh. The blood splattered high, and the girl died on the spot. Several young men couldn't hold her down. I was so scared that I couldn't move. Not to mention Lao Li's illness, he wouldn't have such strength even if he was 20 years younger, so I thought of the zombies in the movie at that time. I corrected my dad, "It's not a zombie, it's a zombie." My dad, "Oh, right, zombie." 7 My dad went on to say, after a while, the girl who was bitten to death by Lao Li, she also stood up. After the girl stood up, she bit the boy closest to her. I didn't dare to hesitate anymore. I stepped on the accelerator and ran home. After saying this, my dad covered his face and cried silently. A close friend of many years died in such a way right in front of me, which is really sad. I guessed that Uncle Lee was attacked at the service area, because the service area closest to my highway exit is less than 10 minutes drive away. And Uncle Lee should have been attacked by zombies that had not yet fully mutated, and thought it was not serious, or wanted to deal with it after getting off the highway, otherwise Uncle Lee would not be able to drive on the highway. According to this situation, zombies will definitely appear in our area tonight at the latest. There is no time. It is now 3:30 in the afternoon. I immediately got up and went to the living room on the second floor to find my computer in college and the TV that was discarded at home. Then I woke up my old father from his sadness and asked my dad to put the surveillance footage on the big screen. My mother and I know nothing about wiring, so we can only rely on my dad. I ran to the basement again and looked through my dad's tools to see if there were any things that could be used as weapons. Even if they can't kill zombies, they can resist the evil people with bad intentions in the Doomsday. I have never forgotten that human hearts are the most terrifying. After searching for a long time, I only found a small axe and 2 hatchets that were barely usable. The other things were too heavy and not suitable for use as weapons. Suddenly, I saw several large barrels of strong liquor and more than 20 boxes of brand name liquor placed next to me. These were reserved by my father for entertaining guests when he served the housewarming wine. Without hesitation, I pulled the cart next to me and moved the wine upstairs, and took a few bottles of Chenar water. I still remember that my high school history teacher told us about the use of Molotov cocktails in the Spanish Civil War. I thought it was interesting at the time, so I remember it very clearly. I went to my mother's room and pulled out a few large pieces of cotton cloth and cut them with scissors. Then I found the beer bottles that my father had drunk before and made a few simple Molotov cocktails. I wanted to test their power, but I was afraid that the noise would be too loud and attract attention, so I had to give up. But with these things, I felt much more at ease. When I went to the second floor, I found that my father had already connected all the wires, and the surveillance videos from all directions appeared clearly on the screen. I took inventory of the supplies. Life is inseparable from eating, drinking, defecating and urinating. We don't have to worry about food. Thanks to my mother, the food stored in the basement is enough for us to eat until the year after next. For drinking, our family has 3 water pipes. One is the tap water in the village. Don't hold out hope for this one. It will definitely stop in a few days. One is the well water from the old house. This is because my father's fish pond uses a lot of water. I am afraid that the well water quality is not good, so I bought a commercial water purifier during 618. Another one is the spring water from the orchard. My orchard is a small hill behind the villa. Although the hill is not high, the water quality is unique. The spring water was discovered by my mother accidentally. My father had taken it for testing before. It was said that it not only meets the drinking standard, but also is rich in minerals. It's just that the water flow is too small, so our family has never told others that there is spring water on the mountain. My father uses it to make tea, and my mother uses it to make soup and cook. As for the toilet, when the orchard was just built, my grandfather built a farm at the foot of the mountain to raise pigs. Later, the price of live pigs plummeted, and my grandfather's health was not good, so he stopped raising pigs. But at that time, in order to deal with pig manure and to facilitate fertilizing the fruit trees, my grandfather built a septic tank at the foot of the mountain. When the villa was renovated and the sewage pipes were installed, because the pipes had to pass by the Zhang family's house, my mother was too lazy to argue with them and directly connected the large and small sewage pipes to the septic tank. Now, I think I have to thank the Zhang family. As for electricity, when the villa was just beginning to be renovated, a distant relative who made solar photovoltaic panels came to sell them. My mother was not at home at the time, so my father had it installed without thinking. When my mother came back and saw that it was already done, and a 5-year contract was signed, my mother and I were furious. I originally planned to have someone build a swing on the roof to make a sky garden. I still remember that I got very angry with my dad at that time. I didn't agree at first. When I was working on a plan, it was normal to stay up all night for several days and nights. Staying up for 2 nights was nothing. But my mother firmly disagreed. I don't care when you are at work, but you have to listen to me when you are at home. What if you are a young girl and you ruin your health? Besides, your father is sick. If anything happens, you will have to deal with it. Although your mother has not been in good health in recent years, it is not so bad that you can't sleep less for a few hours. I have heated up some milk for you and put it by your bed. Go and drink it and go to sleep. I couldn't persuade her, so I had to go back to my room to sleep. As soon as the door was closed, I couldn't stop crying. In the past few years since I came out to work, I have been working alone outside, and I was very impatient with my mother who only knew how to urge me to get married. When I was working, I always held my breath in my heart, wanting to win a place in the company to prove to my mother that I could live well without getting married and relying on men. But I ignored my parents' feelings. My parents were good to my aunt and cousin, but they didn't want me to be alone after they died. Outsiders only saw that I bought a few more big brand bags and negotiated a few deals. Only my parents felt sorry for me for staying up all night and being harassed by clients. They were the only ones who worried whether I would be bullied and whether I had enough food and clothes when I was alone outside. I tried to hold back my tears, drank milk and went to sleep. My father's illness made me realize how important it is to keep a healthy body. We don't have medicine, we can't afford to get sick. It seems that I have to make a fitness plan tomorrow. I fell asleep thinking about these. It was already 7 o'clock in the morning when I woke up, and I jumped up like a spring. I quickly washed and opened the door to see that my father had already gotten up and had prepared breakfast with my mother. Come up, come and eat the breakfast that my father made today. I sat down at the table obediently and saw that although my father was still a little haggard, he was in good spirits. Dad, how do you feel? Go take a rest. Mom, didn't you say you would ask me to take over? It's okay. Your dad is fine now. I'll go to bed later and promise not to hold you two back. Today, you take the morning shift and let your dad take the afternoon shift. But I don't think we need to work all night. It's hard for our bodies to bear it for a long time. I just went to the rooftop to observe. There are only zombies near the main road in our village. Our home is safe for the time being. And don't our surveillance cameras have alarm functions? If we turn on our phones when we sleep at night, we will know if there are zombies approaching. I thought about it and still felt that it wouldn't work. Surveillance is like the lock on the door. It is used to prevent gentlemen but not villains. What I am afraid of now is not zombies, but people. Mom, did anyone see you stockpiling so much food? That shouldn't happen. You know the owner of the grain and oil store on the street has known your dad for more than 10 years. I bought so much online and I was afraid that the boss would be embarrassed. I covered my phone with rain cloth when I came back. When someone asked, I said it was fertilizer for the orchard. No one should have noticed it. Yi's worry is reasonable. It's better to be cautious. But you don't have to work the whole night. I'll take over at 3 o'clock. Yi will work from the afternoon to the early morning. We'll take turns every few days. That's it. My dad was tough, so I had to agree. After breakfast, I urged my parents to go to bed. I sat in front of the monitor and reopened the post I saw the night before. The author news dog still didn't reply, but the hot comment Survivor Tribe was very lively. The comments were basically all accusations and abuses. It seems that someone really went there according to the address, but was turned away and all the supplies were taken away. Someone also said that his girlfriend went in, but he couldn't, and was indignantly questioning why. It seems that someone else went in first, and maybe the original group of students have been controlled by them. Who is in the school now? Maybe it's a human or a ghost. I wanted to comment a few words to remind everyone, but after thinking about it, I decided not to. The more you talk, the more mistakes you make. Some people can even hack the medical system, and they may be able to see the situation in my house through surveillance. Then, they will definitely see that my family has bought a lot of supplies. It's better to keep a low profile and protect yourself. It was almost noon, and my parents got up and made lunch in the kitchen. Suddenly, I smelled smoke, which was not visible on the surveillance. I carefully opened the curtains and saw that the village seemed to be on fire, with thick smoke and flames rising to the sky. I hurried to the third floor, and under the cover of the parapet and solar photovoltaic panels, the cat lowered its body and looked out. That was the old house of the old mute in the center of the village. It was said to be a small wooden structure building left over from the late Qing dynasty. That area was full of old houses like that. We have a subtropical monsoon climate here, with mild winters and little rain. The fire burned more and more vigorously with the wind, and the zombies gathered towards the center of the fire. I heard many people calling for help, but the distance was too far and I couldn't see clearly. I could only be thankful that we were in the upwind and the fire couldn't burn our house. At this time, my father also came up with a telescope. This was when I joined the Bird Lovers Association in my freshman year. I saved money to buy it to observe birds, but later I had a little unpleasantness with the senior sister of the association and quit, and I threw the telescope away in anger. Dad saw my confusion. I was going to throw it away, but your mom saw it. When she was throwing away the garbage and thought it was a toy telescope. It looked new and she planned to give it to your cousin's son to play with. I later saw it in the utility room and put it away. I didn't tell you when I saw you were so sad. I didn't expect it to come in handy today. I took the telescope, adjusted it, and saw a person quickly rushing out of the alley behind the old mute's house. This person had yellow hair, was thin and small, his clothes and pants were tattered, and there was still blood on the silver shining machete in his hand. I didn't know if it was from a human or a zombie. The yellow-haired man took out a small speaker from his trouser pocket, turned it on, threw it on the ground, and walked away without looking back. Only the small speaker was flashing colorful lights on the ground. This little yellow-haired man looked familiar, but I couldn't remember where I had seen him before. However, the commotion was so loud that all the zombies in the village gathered in the center of the village, so we who were on the edge of the village were safer. But in this way, the number of zombies in the village will definitely explode. Because zombies don't need to breathe, thick smoke can't enter the respiratory tract, but people will be choked to death. The people who survived in the center of the village were either choked to death, eaten, or turned into zombies, so it was only a matter of time before the zombies spread to my home. I handed the telescope to my father with worry, and my father recognized the yellow-haired boy. That's a famous scoundrel in the next village. When he was 15 or 16 years old, he didn't go to school and followed Zhang Yaosu all day long. As soon as my father said that, I remembered that this guy was 2 years older than me and was famous throughout the school for breaking my desk mate's ribs. And I remember him because he almost raped my desk mate. The yellow-haired boy and my desk mate were from the same village. My desk mate was an art student who transferred back from the city. Because she had to return to her registered place for the high school entrance examination, she transferred back in the second semester of the second year of junior high school. Our middle school was a boarding school, with one holiday a week. She would go back to her grandmother's house on weekends, go back to the city on Saturdays, and go back to school on Sunday afternoons. That time, because Friday was her uncle's birthday, her father and brother came back early to pick her up. When they passed by the village land temple, they saw the school bag of my desk mate. They were worried, so they got off the car and looked around and found that the beast had tied up my desk mate. At that time, my desk mate's grandmother didn't wait for her to go home, and came to ask me if her granddaughter was playing at my house. I went out with my grandmother to find her, so I knew all these things. Because Huang Mao was still a minor and the crime was attempted, he was sentenced lightly. Later, my desk mate transferred to another school and even moved her household registration to her grandmother's house. Huang Mao's father used some connections to have Huang Mao sent to a mental hospital. Although many years have passed, that hideous face still gave me nightmares for a few days. Huang Mao's figure gradually overlapped with the person in his memory. Oh no, Huang Mao is here, so Zhang Yaozu must have come back too. Sure enough, a car took advantage of the gap when the zombies gathered in the center of the village and quickly drove onto the muddy road in front and stopped in front of Zhao's house. Zhang Yaozu and Huang Mao walked out from the driver's seat and the co-pilot's seat. There were two strange men and a little girl in the back seat. The little girl looked about 14 or 15 years old. She had a shiny pink hairpin on her head, and she was wearing a princess dress. She was carrying a small pink luggage bag of the same style, but she was wearing a men's coat. The little girl looked quite lively, jumping around the four people. Huang Mao also said to the little girl, "Xiao Ya, look, I said that Brother Zhu would not abandon us." He also took the little girl over and kissed her cheek intimately. It seems that the two have a close relationship. However, the two little followers behind her also held the little girl's hand like jealousy. This are all the girls nowadays playing so big. However, the current situation seems to be that the zombies outside blocked Zhao Yaozu's way back, so let Huang Mao set fire to lure away the zombies. If it were me, I would also find a way to lure away the zombies, but there are so many straws piled up by the village, can't I burn them? He had to set fire to people's houses. Zhang Yaozu walked to the door of Zhang's house carelessly, knocked on the door and called his parents to open the door. The Zhang couple was naturally very happy to see their son come back, and hurriedly welcomed them into the house. But before Zhang Yaozu entered the door, he looked at his own house's low wall of less than 1 meter with disdain, and then turned his head and stared at our house thoughtfully. My heart sank. Zhang Yaozu, if people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I will kill you. In the end of the world, rabbits will bite people when they are anxious. I hope you don't seek death. My father and I went back to the second floor and told them that Zhang Yaozu was back and brought back 3 young men. In addition, the look in Zhang Yaozu's eyes before he entered the house made me feel that he had some plans for our family. After all, the photovoltaic panels on the roof of our house are very popular in this doomsday. After thinking about it, I think it is better to make plans early. As she was talking, my mother happily took a cardboard box and walked up. Inside was a nest of chicks. This was found by my mother in the orchard. I don't know whose old hen ran to the orchard to make a nest and laid an egg. Later, a group of hens ran to the nest to lay eggs. My mother sent all the unfertilized eggs back to Aunt Leo's house, who raised chickens, and there were more than a dozen fertilized eggs left. Although my mother can raise chickens, this is the first time she has hatched eggs picked up in the wild. I didn't have any hope at first, so I asked my father to find an incandescent lamp to light it. I turned it over every few days and then left it alone. It has been placed in the corner of the kitchen. I remembered this when I heard the chirping sound today. Watching my parents laughing and discussing how to raise chicks, the dark clouds in my heart also dissipated a lot. I really hope that time will stay in such a peaceful and warm moment forever. But we still have to face the reality. The Zhang family's house has only 1 floor, and the terrain of the Zhang family's house is lower than ours. Standing on the roof of the Zhang family's house and looking at my yard, I can only see the fruit trees in the yard, and I can't even see the 1-meter-high fish pond. But our family can not only observe the whole picture of the Zhang family, but even has a surveillance camera installed at the door of the Zhang family, but it just adjusted the angle so that the Zhang family didn't find it. It's a pity that we can't hear the voices in their house. If we can hear them talking and know what they are planning, we can take precautions in advance. After lunch, I went back to sleep. After all, I just saw Zhang Yaozu brought a lot of supplies in the trunk. The water and electricity network were still running. There was a little girl accompanying him, and his elderly parents were taking care of him. According to my understanding of him, he is probably busy enjoying himself now, and he will not come to gnaw on this hard bone of my house for the time being. How could a person who has been in jail for stealing and stealing for many years not know about explosion-proof doors and power grids? We are all safe until he finds a way to solve the problems of doors and power grids. It was already past 7 o'clock in the evening when I woke up. The fire in the village had become smaller. It seemed that the wooden house had been burned out. There was no combustible material on the outer wall of the concrete house, so the fire gradually became smaller. At this time, I found that the mobile phone was disconnected from the internet and the power was cut off. I don't know if it was because the fire at noon burned the wires. Dad turned on the switch of the photovoltaic panel. Fortunately, the winter in Lingnan is not too cold. We only need to maintain the power of the freezer, refrigerator and power grid. I took an outdoor battery, which was originally used by my dad to collect fruits in the orchard, but now I use it to connect the water heater to heat bath water. Maybe it is really easy to go from frugality to luxury, but difficult to go from luxury to frugality. Now I can't accept taking a cold bath at all. After taking a bath, I saw my mother talking to my father in front of the monitor. It's really a sin. How old is this little girl? These bastards are not afraid of being punished by God. What's wrong, Mom? What punishment from God? It turned out that the tap water in the village was also cut off in the afternoon. When my mother sneaked into the yard to pick vegetables, she heard the old lady of the Zhang family next door taking the little girl out to fetch water. There is also a well in the Zhang family yard. Although the power is off now, there is still a well pressure pump to pump water. This well pressure pump is very common in our area. In the past, it was standard equipment for anyone who dug a well. The Zhang family's well pressure water pump has not been used for a long time. Old Lady Zhang still asked the little girl to pump water, and the pumping rod was rusted. How much strength does a little girl have? She can't press it down at all. I heard Old Lady Zhang lower her voice and started to scold. At first, I could vaguely hear the little girl's soft rebuttal, but then Old Lady Zhang scolded more fiercely, and I heard a few slaps and the little girl's low cry. Mom sighed when I just married your father. The Zhang family boy was only a few months old. When I just gave birth to you, he followed me and asked me when I could call him uncle. No matter how many bad things he has done over the years, no matter how angry I am, I still hope that he can change and live a down-to-earth life. Now I just hope that God can take him away. A good little girl, her life is ruined. When I heard this, alarm bells rang in my heart. My mother didn't see the little girl getting off the bus that day. I exchanged glances with my father, who immediately whispered to comfort my mother. I thought about it and spoke. Mom, let me analyze it with you. If the zombies hadn't broken out, the students wouldn't have had their holidays yet, right? Middle schools near us are basically boarding schools, with holidays once a week or a month. The little girl was wearing a princess dress from a niche foreign brand. It's not expensive but hard to buy. I've only seen a customer's daughter wearing it at his home. The handbag is also from the same series. What does this indicate? What does it indicate? It indicates that the little girl has a good family background and ran away secretly, either skipping school or running away from home. I concluded. If she was kidnapped from school or on the way to and from school, she should be wearing a school uniform. Why is she wearing a beautiful princess dress, carrying a beautiful luggage bag, and a beautiful hairpin on her head? This is obviously dressed for a date. If I'm not mistaken, one of Zhang Yaozu and his friends must have met this girl online. Otherwise, how could a girl from her family get in touch with people like Zhang Yaozu? They gained her trust and made the girl willing to go with them. Is this true? How can this girl trust strangers so easily? Her parents must be so worried. My mother obviously put herself in the role. I asked at the right time, Mom, if I was 14 or 15 years old and ran away with a man with a bag without going to school, what would you do? You dare. I'll break your legs and never let you enter your house again. I'll think I've raised an ungrateful person. After all, she was deceived. Mom, do you still remember that when I was in middle school, I applied for on QQ, someone came to chat with me and asked me to go out and play. Did I decisively block and delete them? Did I tell you about this as a joke? I took a sip of tea. My dad's tea-making skills are getting better and better. In fact, at the age of 14 or 15, you already have a clear cognitive judgment. The school teachers also tell everyone not to easily trust the so-called friends on the internet. I didn't expect to see such a thing happen today. A little girl's family is rich, and she must have no shortage of material life. Look, the little girl's skirt is more expensive than the clothes of Zhang Yaozu and the other four combined. To put it bluntly, the little girl knew that these four were not good people and were poor, but she still followed Zhao Yaozu without hesitation. Why do you sympathize with such a little girl? And since this little girl has the courage to go with Zhang Yaozu and the others, it means that she is not a good man or a believer. Maybe she is enjoying the stars. Gong Ye feels like a queen. To be honest, if four men like me at the same time and satisfy my vanity, I might run away with them in a fit of anger. However, Zhang Yaozu and Hua Mao are not included in the scope of men, they can only be classified as beasts. So Mom, don't be fooled by her. Maybe this is a conspiracy by the other side to make you pity that little girl. Just wait and see, in a few days, the little girl will come crying for help. She tricked you into opening the door to let her in, and she and Zhang Yaozu worked together to steal our house and supplies. Looking at my mother's face full of shock and disbelief, I continued, do you think my junior high school classmate, why did the desk have to be moved? Her grandmother's school is a popular province for art exams. It was because a female classmate who was jealous of her spread rumors everywhere and led the girls to isolate her. Girls nowadays have a lot of thoughts. You have been dealing with black-hearted fruit merchants for your whole life, so don't let this little girl fall into the gutter. Although my words were malicious speculation, school violence is true, and the deskmate's transfer is also true. Now, as long as I can scare my mother, it will be fine. As for the self-torture tactics and the tears of little girls, I have seen a lot. I was relieved when my mother nodded carefully. I turned around and saw my father open the curtains a little and looked at the center of the village with a telescope. After a long time, he turned around and sighed. I walked over and took the telescope to take a look. There were broken walls and ruins, and the remaining firelight reflected the figures of several zombies wandering around. It's gone, everything is gone. The son adopted by the old mute just graduated from college and came back to see him after his internship. And Aunt Six, who lives next door to the old mute, her daughter lives with her children at her mother's house. If the fire hadn't started, I could still deceive myself that everyone was still alive and well like us. Alas, we have been neighbors for so many years, and we used to be old friends who saw each other every day. I was also full of mixed feelings, so I still spoke to comfort my parents and drove them back to sleep. In the middle of the night, I was playing a single-player game on my mobile phone, and the Zhang family really had something fishy. The little girl didn't even wear a coat, she went out with her luggage bag, but unfortunately she was caught before she even touched the gate. Don't blame me for being hard-hearted. After all, in the company, I personally drove away more than a dozen girls who had just graduated from school for internship. If it was 3 years ago, I would still be moved by other people's tears, but now my heart has long been as cold and hard as the stone lions at the door of the bank in winter. All night long, apart from the Zhang family's self-torture trick, only 2 or 3 zombies were attracted by the wild cats nearby. The wild cats left, and the zombies disappeared too. When my dad came to take over in the morning, I told him to pay special attention to the Zhang family, and then I went to catch up on my sleep. It was peaceful until the 6th day after the zombie outbreak, which was also the last day of the Gregorian calendar year. Tonight is New Year's Eve. In the past few days, in addition to the Zhang family coming out from time to time to show their presence, the frequency of zombies appearing near us has become higher and higher. Fortunately, they are always led away by wild cats. And our family has also adapted to life in this doomsday. Mom raises chickens and grows vegetables every day. Dad has been looking for something to repair every day to pass the time since he repaired an old radio. For example, now, Dad is tinkering with the sewing machine that Mom brought as a dowry. Such a peaceful scene was broken at dusk. A large piece of fire cloud appeared on the horizon, which was so beautiful that I took a lot of photos with my camera. The little girl from Zhao's family came to the door of the house in tattered clothes. She came after all. There was no water, electricity, or network these days. It was good enough that Zhang Yaozu could endure it until now. Is there anyone? Please save me, I was deceived by them, please save me, please open the door. I got them all drunk today and then escaped. Please save me, I will be dead when they wake up. At this time, our family was eating dinner calmly on the 2nd floor. Only when we were full could we have the strength to fight. The surveillance camera clearly showed the figure of the little girl, but we ignored her even if she shouted until her voice was hoarse outside. Another half an hour later, we finished dinner, and the little girl finally lost her temper, picked up a stone from the ground and smashed it against the window, but it was a pity that there was not even a scratch left, and the little girl turned around and left angrily. Not long after, the Zhang family's window opened, and several people stood at the window. I opened the 2nd floor window a little and heard a little sound. Mom and Dad, are you sure that there are still people in the Chen family and there are still a lot of supplies? Xiaoya has been crying for a long time, but no one has come out. Zhang Yaozu asked. That should be right. Last week I saw your brother Chen driving a small truck with a lot of express deliveries back. It must be right. Since last month, the couple of the Chen family have bought a lot of things, including grain, oil, rice and flour. They also said it was fertilizer. Why not bring the fertilizer back home if not from the mountain? I just passed by their door on the pretext of digging onions. Oh, it was all food and daily necessities. And their daughter is back too. The car is full of expensive snacks sold in supermarkets. They have electricity again. It must be that this dumb girl has revealed the truth, or she just tipped off the Chen family. Otherwise, according to the character of the Chen family, how could he not come out to open the door? What are you talking about, old woman? The little girl cursed. I tell you, if you weren't the mother of Zhu, do you think I would tolerate your slandering me without any evidence? The rest of the content was extremely full of bad words, so I didn't listen to it. After all, it wouldn't pass the censorship if it was typed out. The two people quarreled louder and louder, and attracted two zombies. Zhang Yaozhu was annoyed and just slapped each of them. TSK, hitting his own mother, Zhang Yaozhu is not afraid of being struck by lightning. However, the quarreling became quieter. The zombies over there had already climbed over the low courtyard wall of Zhao's family and were about to enter the house. I was also silently thinking in my heart, bite him to death, eat him, and then I wouldn't have to worry every day. Unfortunately, at the last second, a fruit knife stretched out from the window and stabbed straight into the zombie's eyes. It was Huang Mao, and then two little followers opened the door and came out with hoes and shovels, and beat the other zombie to death. When my mother saw it, she gasped and dared not look anymore. Although I knew it was a zombie, it still looked like a human. Seeing Huang Mao and his men act so cleanly and neatly, I couldn't help but feel depressed. It's true that good people don't live long, and bad people live for 1,000 years. With their fighting power, how can I fight them? Zhang Yaozhu had already walked out swaggeringly, stepped on the wall and shouted to us, Brother Chen, I know you are at home. I don't mean anything else. Now your family is the only one in the surrounding area with electricity and food. You can't bear to watch us starve to death. As he said that, he reached for his waist and took out something and put it on the wall. Good guy, he really brought back a gun. He was afraid that we wouldn't believe him, so he fired a shot into the sky. How is it, Brother Chen? I spent a lot of time on it. It's pretty good, right? We are neighbors. I don't want to see blood. Let's put it this way. I'll give you 10 minutes to open the door and let me in. Otherwise, I won't be so polite when I go in by myself. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Huang Mao drive their car under the courtyard wall, and two younger brothers brought out a ladder. The ladder was made of aluminum alloy and was wrapped in layers of cardboard. Zhang Yaozhu climbed to the roof and looked down at the whole yard proudly. He said to us, oh, they even planted vegetables. Brother Chen, don't be afraid. I don't know how many power lines I have cut in Southeast Asia. We have experience in this matter. The old lady of the Zhang family also came out to cheer. Yes, son, cut it quickly. Why is it that their family is hiding and eating delicious food and drinking spicy drinks, but we are almost out of rice to cook? The little girl also climbed to the roof of the car and acted coquettishly to Zhang Yaozhu. Brother Zhu, this family must have hot water if they have electricity. They haven't taken a bath for a long time, and their bodies are smelly. You should cut the wire quickly so that they can take a good bath. At this time, we were also very anxious in the house. Zhang Yaozhu had been holding back for the past few days to wrap up the ladder. No wonder he was not anxious even with a gun in his hand. I originally thought that they had a ladder and we had a fork. If they dared to cut it, I would fork it for them. At worst, I still have a Molotov cocktail in my hand, but I have never tried it and I am not sure. But now, I am afraid that we will be beaten into a sieve as soon as we show our heads. Yee, what should we do? Do we really have to give this house to someone else? This is the lifelong hard work of your father and I. Mom can't bear it. My mother has already started crying. I am afraid that he will not let us go even if we give up the house obediently. He is an ungrateful person. He even beats and scolds his parents who worship him like an emperor. How can we have an easy life? Dad took a deep breath. At worst, we will fight him to the death. Anyway, it has come to this point. Either they die or we die. My mother cried and said, as long as our family is together, even if we die, we will not be alone on the road. Mom and Dad, what are you talking about? Things are not that bad yet. Let me think about it. Outside the window, because of Zhang Yaozu's loud shouting, several zombies were attracted, but they were all beaten to death by the three yellow-haired people without exception. My location is too remote. It would be nice if there were a few more zombies. Suddenly, I thought of something and asked my mother to bring the raw meat in the refrigerator and the leftover meat from tonight. Then I turned on the monitoring speaker and microphone and said to Zhang Yaozhu, don't be impulsive. Let's talk it over. The power grid is fine. If you cut it, you won't feel at ease living in it. Since you want this house, I'll give it to you. It has just been renovated. I can't get all the small things together. I'm not used to living here. Zhang Yaozhu laughed even more wildly. You are sensible. It's worth it that I followed you every day to protect you when you were in school. But why should I believe that you would give me the house? Humph, protect me? You are clearly plotting against me. Humph, you still want my house? Dream on. Look, I'm a woman, my father and mother are sick, we have no ability to resist, what's there to worry about? How about this, I'll cut off the power grid, can this give me a little more time? At least, I can pack blood pressure medicine for my parents. Although we don't have much stuff at home, we still have a few pieces of meat. I'll put it down through the window for you, you guys eat first. As I said, I put the meat down through the window with the cotton thread my mother used to sew clothes. The power has been out for so many days, and the Jan family has eaten up all the meat they have stored. Now seeing the meat I put down, Mrs. Zhang couldn't help but come and take it away first, and she was smiling. Oh, I told you that the Chen family doesn't lack good things. My dear son, let's stew meat tonight. Oh, there's no gas at home. Come in and light the fire, old man. Zhang Yaozhou didn't care about the meat. He signaled Huao Mao to test the power grid. After confirming that the power was off, he raised his head and said to me as if he was giving me a favor, 20 minutes, you are not allowed to take away anything you eat or drink. Seeing this, I quickly promised to take away only my parents' blood pressure medicine and a few clothes, and nothing else. I put a few more bags of snacks and beer in the pot, such as peanuts, dried fish, and dried squid, all in bulk. One bag weighed more than 1 pound, which I bought to eat while watching TV series. After stabilizing Zhang Yaozhou, I went around to the window of the house near the orchard and dumped all the leftovers today. My parents didn't understand what I was going to do yet, and just asked me if I was going to pack up now. No need to clean up, he can't even get into our yard, Mom and Dad, believe me. I went back to the surveillance camera and saw that Zhang Yaozhou had returned to the Zhang family's yard. Perhaps they had also observed in the past few days that there were few zombies in this area, and the zombies that often appeared had been killed by them, so they set up a table in the yard and drank without restraint. The little girl was still sitting on Zhang Yaozhou's lap, pouring wine for him while flirting with the other 3 people. The world is really going downhill. Seeing this, I put 2 more bottles of white wine in them. They drank and chatted happily, and even built a fire to keep warm. The atmosphere was heated, and they talked unscrupulously. I heard that they also had the idea of the Survivor University, but they were a step slower and someone got there first. The other party had a gun, and they wanted to give up but were unwilling to do so, so Zhang Yaozhou sneaked in and stole a gun back. Hearing from his parents that my family had stored a lot of good stuff, he ventured back and actually managed to snatch a lot of supplies with his gun. Now, they can be said to be brothers who share hardships and wealth. It's just that it's not enough to have only one woman by his side. Now, he has goods in his hands. Although he can't be the emperor, he can be a local emperor, right? Then he must have the whole palace. They laughed loudly, and this made the little girl act coquettishly again, but I always felt that he was looking at me. Humph, I'll let you daydream enough today. Sure enough, it was dark in a few minutes, and Zhang Yaozhou, who was drinking happily, also realized that something was wrong. Because countless wild cats have surrounded the Zhang family yard. These wild cats are not only big, but also strangely have eyes that are all white, and no pupils can be seen. Where did so many cats come from? It's dark, don't cats' eyes glow? How come this cat can't see anything? The little girl was so scared that her face turned pale and she hid behind Zhang Yaozhou. Zhang Yaozhou immediately realized that it was a trap set by me. He threw all the snacks on the table far away, and the wild cats all ran away with him. Zhang Yaozhou casually picked up a burning firewood from the fire as a light, and called Huao Mao and the others to cut the electric fence. At this time, I suddenly poured down several large basins of blood from the upstairs windowsill, mixed with pieces of meat that had not been completely thawed, and poured them all over, making them shiver with cold. Cut it, you see if you are a wooden man who can't be damaged by electricity. The electric fence in my house is specially increased in voltage. If you are not afraid of death, come and cut it. I shouted loudly. Zhang Yaozhou hesitated in the end, looked back, and asked the little girl to come and cut it. The little girl hesitated. Brother Du, I'm scared, I have never cut it before, and I don't have the strength. I can't cut it well. Before he finished speaking, Zhang Yaozhou slapped her. Just cut it if I tell you to, why are you talking so much nonsense? The little girl had to climb the ladder aggrievedly, splash accompanied by another basin of blood pouring, and the little girl's scream also sounded. Zhang Yaozhou couldn't bear it anymore, so he went home and took 2 plastic bags and put them on his hands. He smiled at me smugly. If you have the guts, throw more water. I want to see how much water you can throw. I really didn't have any blood to throw. My mother wanted to buy a refrigerator with this function that can quickly defrost meat, but my father mocked her and said it was useless. Now the facts prove that what my mother said is always right. I have emptied all the meat in the refrigerator's fresh keeping layer tonight, but the purpose has been achieved. No need to throw it, I smiled more proudly than Zhang Yaozhou. Turn around and look around, uncle, see whether your life is more important or cutting my small electric fence is more important. Zhang Yaozhou looked back and saw that dense zombies were walking towards him. That's right, the wild cats were just a prelude, and what I'm waiting for is now the zombie siege. As early as when I was preparing to put the frozen meat down, I had a tricky plan. I tore a big hole in the plastic bag, and deliberately put it down very slowly. The blood had already dripped all over the floor. I have been feeding the wild cats next to me these days. At first, I just wanted them to lead the zombies away. Later, these wild cats squatted downstairs almost every day. So I deliberately gave Zhang Yaozhou those snacks. The fishy smell of dried fish is so strong, and cats have such a keen sense of smell that they will definitely go over to eat. When Zhang Yaozhou realized this, he would throw the snacks out. Where to throw them? Throw them into the village. Like our house, which is backed by a mountain, people habitually do not throw garbage behind their houses, but only in the open space in front. The cat ran away. In the process of snatching the dried fish, they would definitely fight. Fighting would make noises, especially when so many cats fight together. What's more terrifying is that these cats have mutated. After reading the article of News Dog before, I have always paid close attention to observing the animals around me. After the wild cat helped me lead away the zombies on the first night, I found that the cat had grown up. Not only did it become taller and stronger, but it also fought more bravely. At that time, I knew that the cat had been infected with the zombie virus. I don't know whether it was scratched by the zombies or it ate the zombies' rotten meat. Anyway, if one cat mutated, the whole group of cats mutated, and the fighting power increased rapidly. The noise made by the fight was still not enough to attract so many zombies, so I added several large basins of blood. The strong smell of blood, coupled with the deliberate anger of Zhang Yaozu, caused him to speak loudly. In addition, they were asking for death and burning a fire in the yard. Who else would the zombies look for? I have the advantage of a high building, but he doesn't. I want to see how powerful they are and whether they can kill so many zombies. I closed the window and watched the show. I saw several people retreating to the yard while repelling the zombies. At this time, the Zhang family couple came out with stewed meat to greet their good son for dinner. When they saw so many zombies, they were scared and stood there motionless. Zhang Yaozu saw that his way home was blocked by his parents. He pulled his old parents out without thinking, and the stewed meat was scattered all over the floor. He rushed in. Hua Mao and his two younger brothers followed in quickly, and then the door was closed heavily. Only the Zhang family couple who had not yet reacted and the little girl who walked a step slower were left outside the door. After the three of them reacted, they slapped the door in panic. Open the door, son, your father and I haven't entered the house yet. Open the door quickly, Zorga, don't leave me, you said you would make me your most favored concubine. The crying and shouting in the Zhang family yard did not last long, and the zombies had already eaten all three people. The cruel scene looked even more terrifying against the background of the firelight, and I couldn't help but ran to the toilet to vomit. But it's better this way, otherwise I'm afraid I won't be able to do it if my neighbors become zombies for many years. The zombies are besieging the Zhang family, and Zhang Yaozu, I can't let him go, I must take advantage of tonight to get rid of him. Otherwise when he recovers, it will be our family who will die. Going up to the third floor, my parents have brought up 2 large barrels of white wine, and my father's car washing machine water inlet pipe has been put into the barrel. I didn't hesitate, plugged in the car washing machine, and the high-proof white wine sprayed out from the high-pressure water gun at the group of zombies in the Zhang family. Now, a new question arises. I don't know if the smell of liquor affects the zombies' sense of smell. I only know that the noise of the car washing machine has attracted the attention of the zombies. The zombies all looked upstairs. Wow, I didn't stand so neatly even when I was in college. I followed suit and took a small plug-in speaker for English learning in junior high school. I turned up the volume and tied a plastic bag to it as a parachute. I threw it gently and landed steadily on the roof of Zhao's building. The sound of the small speaker really drew the attention of the zombies back to Zhao's house. I also picked up the water scoop and poured out all the liquor until the 2 large barrels of high-proof liquor were used up. Back on the second floor, just when I was wondering how long the shabby doors and windows of Zhao's house could last, Zhao Yaozu opened the side window, threw a person out and quickly closed the window. That was the nameless little brother who followed him. His throat had been cut, and the blood had stained large areas of the floor red. I watched him struggling to crawl out, but unfortunately there were too many zombies. Bang! A person was thrown out of the window on the other side, and the zombies were attracted to both sides. Zhang Yaozu and Hua Mao rushed out of the house with bare chests. It seemed that their clothes were stained with blood and they had no time to change. Bitch, we have a long way to go. After saying that, he got into the car and ran away. Can't let him go. This is the only thought in my mind. Zhang Yaozu can even use his parents as scapegoats, not to mention that I have offended him tonight, and I must not let him go. I was a little dazed about what happened later. I only had one thought in my mind, that I must not let Zhang Yaozu run away alive. I touched a cold bottle in my hand. Oh, this is the Molotov cocktail I made. Where is the lighter? Well, I remember I put it on the windowsill. Oh, here, light a fire, light the Molotov cocktail, and throw it at the roof of Zhang Yaozu's car. The glass bottle hit the roof and shattered instantly, and a raging flame burned. Fortunately, their car didn't run far away, and I sprayed their car with white wine just now. It burned, and not long after, with a bang, the car exploded. Looking back, I saw that my father had also set the group of zombies on fire. It turned out that the zombies really had no sense of pain. They were burned black but still firmly surrounded the Zhang family to find the small speaker that was making sounds. Although 2 large barrels of high-proof white wine were used, the alcohol evaporated quickly and the burning ended soon. We used a high-pressure water gun on the 3rd floor to extinguish the remaining fire. When the fire was completely extinguished, we could already see the sunrise. A new day and a new year have arrived, and the biggest threat around me has also been eliminated. After the end of the world, I have been very scared. How can a weak woman like me protect my parents from the ferocious zombies and ensure that we can live until the day of national liberation? I am not sure. I am very scared. I am so scared that I have to rely on sleeping pills to fall asleep every day. I am so scared that I hide in the quilt and cry secretly. But I still pretended to be indifferent in front of my parents. Now, I am no longer afraid. If someone or a zombie wants to hurt my family again, I will not be soft-hearted. After the war, we lost 2 barrels of high-proof liquor, some meat and 3 bags of snacks. In addition, 2 of the surveillance cameras near Zhao's house and the power grid on that wall were burned by the fire. After my father's repair, they have all been restored to use. Casualties: the enemy was completely destroyed, and we had no casualties. Congratulations. It happened to be the auspicious day of New Year's Day, and I acted like a spoiled child and asked my mother to make a delicious meal. Anyway, zombies can't get in. There are no other living people in this area except our family. After eating, we can go to sleep well. Mom naturally went with a smile, but Dad ran to the balcony, tremblingly took out a cigarette and put it in his mouth, and called me over. Yi, don't be stubborn. If you are scared, just cry. Like when you were a child, lie on Dad's shoulder and cry, okay? Dad really regrets sending you to boarding school when you were so young. If I hadn't been stubborn and worked honestly in the factory, you wouldn't have to follow me back to the countryside and live so hard. I couldn't hold back my tears in an instant. I cried on his shoulder like I was wronged in kindergarten when I was a child. I told him about my grievances and fears, and told him that I was more afraid of losing them than being bitten to death by zombies. So I don't regret everything I did last night, and I also told him that I am not afraid now. Our family will live well together until the end of the world and the dawn of light. Extra chapter. Unconsciously, our family has been transferred to the survivor base for 5 months. I stood up and looked at the busy crowd downstairs, and still felt unreal. When I closed my eyes, all I could see were the scenes of living frugally and calculating food at home. After solving the hidden danger of Zhang Yaozhou, our family did have a carefree life. But the food we stored was eaten up in the 3rd year of the apocalypse. Fortunately, the chickens at home have been laying eggs. Fortunately, our family does not eat much pasta, and the flour we stored can be used to feed the chickens. My parents also used their strengths and built several greenhouses in the yard to grow vegetables. However, since the seeds we bought had been used up, the germination rate of the self-retained seeds was greatly reduced. Only 4 or 5 of the 10 seeds could germinate. So we had to calculate the vegetables we ate. Fortunately, potatoes, sweet potatoes, and corn could still maintain their yields. 4 or 5 solar photovoltaic panels were broken, and electricity began to be tight. We had no shortage of supplies, daily necessities, and water. But there was really no better way to get food. Starting from the 2nd year of the apocalypse, the weather began to become bad. The temperature in the summer was as high as 45 degrees Celsius, and in the winter it was as low as -10 degrees Celsius, and it snowed. It was okay in the summer, we just packed up and moved to the basement. It was really too cold in the winter. This low temperature was very rare in Lingnang, so we had to take the risk of turning on the air conditioner. Fortunately, our air conditioner outdoor unit was installed in the basement, and the sound of wind and snow outside covered the noise of the air conditioner outdoor unit. What's worse is that we haven't communicated with outsiders for a long time and can't receive information from the outside world. Our family's mentality has changed a lot. When the end of the world just came, we were still full of confidence and believed that the country would soon solve this crisis. Every day when I got up, I checked whether the mobile phone signal had been restored, and took a telescope to the 3rd floor to observe whether there were any vehicles passing by on the main road. But as time went by, our beliefs changed from being unwavering at the beginning to gradually wavering later, and then to complete disappointment. I realized that this state was wrong, but I was powerless to change anything. In the final analysis, if the zombies are not cleared one day, we can't go back to the previous state. I can only take out the computer and watch the downloaded TV programs over and over again with my parents to divert our attention. Fortunately, at this time, the country began to counterattack. Survival bases were established in several coastal cities. We also tried every means to restore the mobile phone signal for a short period of time and warned of the zombie tide information several times. We also contacted the rescue team during these signal recovery periods. The rescue team told us that the several survival bases currently built were too far away from us and it was not recommended for us to go there. A city not far from us is planning to build a new survival base, asking us to hold on for a year no matter what, and the survival base will be put into use after a year. Every 3 months, helicopters will deliver supplies to us. Knowing that everything is moving in a good direction, my parents and I also swept away the haze of food shortage and cheered up again. It was 9 months later that we received another call from Officer Liu from the rescue team. He told us that a super large corpse tide was detected in our north. Calculations show that our orchard and villa are on the path of the corpse tide and will soon arrive in our village. The good news is that the new survival base is ready for use, and a helicopter will take us away soon. Then, I saw with my own eyes that a large number of helicopters brought a large number of soldiers and buried countless mines and explosives in my orchard and villa. Officer Leo explained to us that the scale of the corpse tide this time was too large, and it was probably because of their beast-like intuition that they sensed that there were living people in the south. If left alone, the newly built survival base will surely be trampled into ruins by the tide of zombies, and the country's previous efforts will be wasted and destroyed. So we can only bury a large number of mines on the road where the zombies must pass. Even if we cannot completely eliminate them, we must do our best to reduce some of the zombies. When my parents heard that they were going to blow up the house, their eyes were red, but they still nodded firmly. I raised my camera and took the first family photo after the end of the world in front of the villa. This house that has protected us for 4 years will no longer exist today. It would be a lie to say that I don't feel reluctant. After all, the most difficult months when the end of the world came were spent here. After the mines are buried, we will evacuate with these soldiers. As soon as I got on the plane, I saw the zombies coming. Countless zombies, densely packed, staggering towards the back mountain. I have experienced several zombies before, but we didn't evacuate. Because of the terrain advantage, plus the confidence in the villa supervised by my father, and the scale of the previous zombie tides was far less than this one. I looked down from the sky, the zombie tide was like a locust passing through, and no grass grew wherever it went. No matter how solid the building was, it couldn't withstand a zombie tide of this scale. The zombie tide was blown away as soon as it entered the back mountain range. The explosion of landmines never stopped, and you could hear it even with headphones. The ground was dusty and the smell of gunpowder made people unable to open their eyes. But the zombies were still fearless, one after another, and moved forward unswervingly. The momentum was comparable to the soldiers going to war in the cold weapon era, which was terrifying. Fortunately, the hard work of an afternoon was not in vain. The scale of the zombie tide has become much smaller because of the explosion. But the scale is still very impressive. So many mines and bombs have only reduced the number of zombies by 1/5. My parents and I were speechless when we saw it. It was too terrifying. Seeing that we were in a heavy mood, the accompanying young soldier took the initiative to talk to us. The young soldier looked young, with tan skin, but the lines on his face were clear, his features were deep, and his eyebrows were sharp. But as soon as he opened his mouth, you could tell that he was definitely older than he looked. The voice coming from the headphones was deep, and magnetic. It might be the hero filter, but I thought it sounded pretty good. Don't worry, there are already comrades laying mines ahead, and there are bombers on standby at the survival base. Our operations department has calculated the path of the zombie tide and the number of mines required, and we will never let these zombies reach the survival base. I swear in the name of a soldier that I will definitely protect the safety of the villagers. He saluted us as he spoke. My parents and I were all amused by this young soldier, and we could only explain to him that we were not afraid or worried, but it was the first time we saw such a scene, and we were a little shocked. Once we started talking, we couldn't stop. It was rare for my parents to see a living person, so the reservedness when they first met disappeared. From where my brother was from, I kept asking what breed his dog was. We couldn't stop talking until we got off the helicopter. I clearly saw the relieved expression on the little soldier's face when he said goodbye to us. The days after arriving at the survival base began to get busy. The survival base had just been established. In addition to our family, there were only a dozen families, all of whom were military dependents. My parents started to happily farm again. At present, there were only 2 of them in the entire survival base who were genuine farmers. Those soldiers were okay at planting mines, but farming was difficult. Fortunately, the base was equipped with various agricultural vehicles and agricultural equipment, and there were a group of soldiers to help, so they were not tired. I became a guide in the base. After people arrived at the base, I was responsible for introducing the basic situation of the base to everyone. Busy, but very reassuring. I later met the young soldier several times. It turned out that his name was Yinan, and he was a team leader of the rescue team. During a casual chat, I learned that the news dog did not hold on to the end. Someone dug out his true identity and robbed his supplies. He did not die at the hands of the zombies, but was forced to jump off the building by his compatriots. The survivors of the university were also rescued by the military. According to Yinan, when they arrived at the university, it had become a living hell. Young men were chained to farm and raise pigs, and the elderly were pushed outside to fend for themselves. The younger children also had to work, and if they did not obey, they would be beaten and kicked. As for women, they had even less status to speak of, and were half-dressed. The military shot the criminals one by one in front of everyone, and also sent psychologists to treat them. However, the memory of what happened can never be erased. When facing desperate situations, people will struggle to survive, but after confirming safety, shame will prevail. Especially when they confirmed that their families were safe, many people still chose to commit suicide. I was depressed for several days after hearing this. Yinan came to comfort me and told me about the supermarket owner he met when he was on a mission. He selflessly rescued his neighbors, and the families had been helping each other. He also talked about a pregnant woman who was about to give birth. By chance, she saved a doctor. Not only did he help her deliver the baby, but he also saved his mother who suffered from high blood pressure. Maybe this is human nature. When conditions are bad, you can't care about sadness. As long as you live a little better than others, you will start to worry about other people's situations and can't bear to see any suffering in the world. I looked at Yinan, and there was a dark spot under his eyes. I felt very sorry. They were very tired after the mission, and they came back to comfort me. I patted his shoulder, indicating that I had understood and would cheer up, and then I urged him to go back and rest. Yinan didn't move, as if he had something to say to me. I spoke before him, saying that I didn't know when the apocalypse would end, and that he must be careful when he went out on a mission to change the subject. Yinan gave me a bitter smile, said good night to me, and turned away. As soon as he left, the smile on my face collapsed. I knew what he was going to say. They had received instructions and would go to the new survival base next week. Once they left, they would not come back until the end of the apocalypse. But I couldn't go with him. My parents finally settled down and couldn't run around anymore. No one could be sure of the unknown future. I wasn't sure if I could wait until he came back alive, and neither could he. In that case, why bother each other? As a result, when I got home, I actually saw that shameless ex-boyfriend drinking tea and chatting with my dad affectionately. Xu Hailiang was my high school classmate and a department manager in my company, but we were in different departments. He joined the company 3 years after me. Not long after Xu Hailiang joined the company, the manager of their department retired. Although Xu Hailiang had been in the company for a short time, he was young, hardworking, good-looking, and capable, so he was promoted quickly. The reason we got together was because we were of the same age and from the same place. We didn't make this relationship public. First, it was too short, and second, although we were in different departments, office romance was a bit taboo. Especially since we were both managers of important departments in the company, we had to be cautious. Xu Hailiang originally thought that he would work in this company for another 2 years, and then he would change jobs after saving enough for the down payment of a house. At that time, we could hold hands openly in front of people. Unexpectedly, we didn't hold hands. After a business trip, I came back to hear the news that he and the boss's daughter had an open relationship. I was still wondering if there was any misunderstanding. He and I received the task of business trip at the same time, and we were so busy that we didn't even have time to reply to my message, so how could we have time to fall in love with the boss's daughter? When I arrived at his office, his assistant said he was not at work today. I called him, but it was the boss's daughter who answered the phone. The boss's daughter graduated this year and was supposed to come to my department for an internship. She came to the company and saw Xu Hailiang for some reason, so she wanted to be transferred to his department. The boss was afraid that his daughter would be too hard, so he didn't agree at first, but he couldn't persuade the eldest daughter, so he finally nodded. I tried to make my voice sound less unusual. Is Manager Xu not here? I brought gifts for everyone after my business trip. I saw that he was not in the office to care about us. Oh, it's okay. We just came back from Hong Kong. We were too tired to go to work today. By the way, Manager Chen, please take the things you left with Liang. I don't like other people's things. But you and Liang didn't have any substantial behavior. It won't hurt you if you break up. You shouldn't mind Liang being with me. My heart sank a little when she said that. I tried to calm myself down. It's just some pots and pans. Please help me throw them away. Oh, and please tell Manager Xu that even a woman has to help him break up. I really despise him. That's because I feel sorry for him working overtime and getting stomachaches if he doesn't pay attention to what he eats. I specially prepared kitchen utensils for him. When I'm not busy at noon, I often go to his house to cook for him before going back to work. Thinking about it now, it was really not worth it. Later, I was fired as expected. After the breakup, I was indeed sad and depressed for a while, but then I slowly came to my senses. Later, when the end of the world came, I had no time to think about it. I didn't expect that this scumbag would dare to appear in front of me. The first thing I said was, "Why haven't you died yet, scumbag?" My parents were shocked, and my dad scolded me. "Chen Yi, how can you talk to customers like this? Get out and reflect on yourself." Oh, he was so angry that he didn't call me by my nickname, so I turned around and left. As I walked out, I said, "This is my ex-boyfriend who abandoned me and was with the boss's daughter. Is there anything wrong with what I said?" Sure enough, the next second, Xu Hailiang was also kicked out by my dad. I crossed my arms and waited for him at the door. "If you have something to say, just say it. If you have something to say, just fart." Xu Hailiang made people want to beat him up as soon as he opened his mouth. "Yi, are you in a bad mood today? You are so irritable." Hey, don't go, I have something serious to say." I stopped at this point. "If you say one more word of nonsense, I will tie you up and throw you outside to feed the zombies." "Yi, I'm sorry. I was sorry to you back then. I don't want to struggle anymore. It's too tiring. I'm really tired from traveling day and night for business trips and social events. So I couldn't resist the temptation and took a shortcut. I came here today to say sorry to you and to persuade you. You don't know it yourself, but the people close to us know that you are stubborn and will not turn back until you hit the wall. You have a strong sense of responsibility. Don't talk nonsense." I was very irritable. Yi Nan is really good. He rescued me. I stayed in another base for half a year. I heard that there was a shortage of people here, so I came to help. I didn't expect to meet him again. I saw you two eating together in the cafeteria that day. The way he looked at you was exactly the same as mine back then. Xu Hailiang walked up to me, looked into my eyes and said seriously, "Yi, I was the one who made a mistake back then. You didn't make any mistakes. Don't be afraid of the rope after being bitten once. You and Yi Nan are both very good people. You deserve his love, and he deserves you. Yi Nan, he is different from me. I am a hypocrite, and he is a real man. You are quite self-aware. We can't chat anymore today. I understand what you mean. You've finished talking, right? Then leave quickly." I waved to him and turned away. It seems that what he said makes sense. Is it possible that I, Chen Yi, am destined to be alone and meet scumbags? I don't believe in evil. I lost the bet last time. This time, I want to bet on myself to win. I caught up with Yi Nan, who hadn't walked far yet, and asked him breathlessly, "What did you just say?" Yi Nan hadn't reacted yet, and subconsciously said, "Are you willing to be with me and wait for me for a few years?" "I do." In the dark night, I clearly saw 2 rows of white teeth under Yi Nan's dark skin, and his smile was so bright that it almost blinded my eyes. I finally held hands with my beloved in front of people. After Yi Nan left, our days at the base gradually got back on track, and good news kept coming. We have established 7 survival bases in the inland. The development of vaccines has also made major breakthroughs. Finally, in August of the 7th year of the apocalypse, I saw on TV that the national leaders officially announced that our country had overcome this disaster. The door lock turned, Yi Nan walked in, and I threw myself into his arms with red eyes. The apocalypse is over, and we should have a new beginning.